So yesterday I started and I showed you equilibrium. I'm going to go ahead and re-show this now because I kind of just showed it in passing yesterday at the end of class. So what we're going to do here from here on out, anytime you draw a supply curve, you draw a demand curve with it. It's like etiquette. You know, if somebody says pass the salt, you don't just pass the salt, you pass the salt and the pepper. From this point forward, anytime I say to draw something, you draw both supply and demand together from this point forward. I may say something like draw a market for bananas or whatever, in which case you're drawing the supply and demand curve together. The magic happens where the X occurs. That's called equilibrium. That's where the quantity supplied at equilibrium, quantity supplied is equal to the quantity demanded. So all that the sellers wish to sell at that price is all that we want to buy at that price. The market is in equilibrium. It's like happy, happy town. Okay, so from this point forward, that is where you are going to be working with equilibrium. And what we're going to do now, okay, so the equilibrium price provides information for economic decision makers. Okay, the price provides the information. Who are these decision makers? The sellers and the buyers. And by the way, you need to stop and rewind as many times as you need to on this video. Do not just watch it through one time. You need to stop and rewind and re-listen to it and make sure you got this stuff down. There's certain spots you're gonna have to stop anyways to draw stuff for me. All right, so for the markets in equilibrium, why would prices change? Well, prices change, you know, ignoring gimmicks, ignoring marketing gimmicks. Prices change when some of the determinants change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how each of these determinants affect the market. So the first determinant I'm going to cause change is I'm going to change the demand, and I'm going to increase demand. So what you always do is you always, and please, I've seen people draw these the first time around and they don't do this. Always start at equilibrium. Always start at equilibrium. Now you're in equilibrium. Now do your changes. I see people all the time trying to do the changes before they find their equilibrium point, and it will mess you up later on. So what's going to happen if we get an increase in demand? And this could be because of taste and preferences, consumer income, population, price of a substitute, price, all those determinants that you learned earlier to find out why they changed. You get a change in demand. In this case, it's an increase in demand. And what happens is the price then changes. Okay, the price increases and the quantity increases. I left something out that I haven't taught you yet. I want to come back to this later on. But we now have a new equilibrium point. That's our new equilibrium point. Okay. What I'm going to have you do now is I'm going to have you pause the video and draw a decrease in demand. You're going to be drawing a decrease in demand. So you're going to have to pause the video. So pause in 5, 4, once you get it drawn again, once you get it drawn, restart the video. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so now that you think you've drawn it, let's check your work here. How do we draw a decrease in demand? We do our price and quantity. We've got our supply and our demand curve. We have our equilibrium price, equilibrium quantity, start at equilibrium, always, always, always start at equilibrium. And now we're going to get a decrease in demand. Again, it would be one of the determinants. The demand curve shifts to the left. What happens is we go to our new equilibrium point, price decreases, quantity decreases. And by the way, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for an answer on this other one here. The answer is price increases, quantity increases. This is the one you did just a minute ago. Okay, the one I showed you. Okay, on the one you just did, the answer is price decreases, quantity decreases. And this makes sense. If we don't think about this. When you draw these things, stop and say, do these make sense? If we don't want it anymore, decrease in demand, that's what we're selling them when we buy them. When we decrease our demand, we're telling them we don't want to buy them anymore. What are they forced to do to get rid of them? They're forced to lower the price. Okay, and really, if you think about it, what's going on here is we learned this already. Okay, there's a supply curve, and I'll violate my rule about them always going together here, but this was the price, so this was the quantity supplied, right? When we don't want it anymore, the demand curve shifts to the left over here. Okay, on this graph back over here to the left, the demand curve shifts to the left. And when that demand curve shifts to the left, the price, they have to drop the price to sell the product. Okay, so when I showed you this with just supply curve, what I didn't tell you at the time is the prices don't just change on their own. It had to have happened because we decreased our demand. That's what you're doing here. A determinant shifts it. It's moving along the supply curve when the demand curve shifts. So in this case right here, we increased our quantity supplied. When the demand, this one a minute ago, when we increased the demand, we said, ooh, we want this product, we want this product, we want this product, we want this product. So what did the sellers do? They said, okay, we're gonna give you this product, but hey, you're gonna have to pay for it. And they raised the price. And what happens is when they raise the price, we're happy. Well, we'd obviously not want the price to raise, but I mean, we get more of the product. The key is we get more. But the only way we're gonna get more, the only way that seller is willing and able to sell that product, because remember, that supply curve is the firm's willingness and ableness to sell the product. And at this lower price, this is all they were willing and able to sell. And so when the price went up, they're like, okay, yeah, we'll sell you more. So when the price went up, they would sell more, right? Again, why did the price go up? The price went up because that was the demand curve there. And we said, we want more. And when we say we want more, they say, okay, we'll give you more, but we're going to charge you for it. Okay, so that's determinants of demand. Again, stop, rewind, and rewatch that whole section on demand. Okay, it's like 5 minutes. Go back, rewatch this section, and listen to what I'm telling you on this stuff. You have to understand, not only do you have to be able to draw the graph, you have to understand the concept behind what's going on here. Okay, once you've stopped and rewound now, you're back to here. I'm going to show you what happens when you have a determinant of supply changes. So this is a case where we start off at equilibrium. We've got our equilibrium price and our equilibrium quantity. And what we're going to do now is we're going to cause an increase in supply. Again, this could be one of the determinants. Number of sellers, cost of inputs, all those ones that we went over in class. All those determinants, so 6 determinants in class. And what's going to happen, there's going to be an increase in supply. Okay, well, the first gotcha is which way is an increase? Increases to the right. Okay, increases when the curve shifts to the right. So what's going to happen here is this firm is going to increase their supply, or this market is going to increase their supply, and the curve is going to shift to the right. Now, again, what it's happening when I showed you this earlier is this is going to be movement along the demand curve. We're going to be moving along the demand curve. All right. So what's going to happen here is when the supply curve shifts to the right, they're selling more. So now there's a lot more out there. We walk out there and go, whoa, look at all of this product. There sure is a lot of it. Well, how do they get rid of that product? The only way they can get rid of that product is by lowering the price. Since there's more of it out there, they've got to get rid of it so the price gets lowered. We buy more. Quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. Our new equilibrium is QS equals QD. We're happy. Quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. And we're happy. Again, coming over to this graph on the left here with the demand curve, what really happened? Well, the price didn't just go down. The reason why the price went down is that this was how many we wanted. And when they supplied us with more, okay, when they supplied us with more, then we bought more. Okay, and this is QS equals QD. When you get this equilibrium points here, that's QS equals QD. Okay, just like we did with demand, I'm going to let you try to draw this. So you're going to have to stop the video, and when you got it drawn, come back and watch. Stopping the video in 3, 2, 1, stop. Okay, now you've drawn this thing, and I'm going to go ahead and show you a decrease in supply. All right, we've got our upward sloping supply curve, our downward sloping demand curve, start at equilibrium. Always start at equilibrium. And what we're going to do now is we're going to decrease supply. A decreased supply is we're selling less, so it's got to be a shift to the left. And when it shifts to the left, the market moves. The price is going to rise, and the quantity is going to decrease. So again, what's the answer? Price increases, quantity decreases. Okay. Now, this gets a little bit more complicated, so hopefully you're comfortable with that now. What happens when both change? When both supply and demand change? All right, what's going to happen is one of the two, either price or quantity, will not be able to be determined. Okay, we're not going to be able to determine either price or quantity anytime you have a double shifter. Okay, unless I tell you how far to shift it, anytime you have a double shifter, you're going to have something, either price or quantity, is going to be indeterminate. So I'm going to show you this, and so you can see what's going on here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to increase supply and increase demand at the same time, because things happen in the markets. Like right now, a hurricane is hitting, which is causing the oil wells to shut down, which means there's a decrease in supply. But at the same time, the weekend's coming, so people are driving more, so there's an increase in demand. And so you've got a, in that case, you've got a decreased supply and an increase in demand at the same time. This one here is an increase in supply and an increase in demand, so I'm going to show you this one. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start at equilibrium. And I'm going to increase supply and increase in demand. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift one of them a whole lot and the other one not very far. So I'm going to basically just shift the supply just a little bit, and I'm going to shift the demand a whole lot. Now, when you do that, you got to find your S prime, D prime intersection. You got to find the double intersection of those two. Okay, these other points are not important. Okay, the S, D prime, and the S, D prime is not important, and the D, S prime is not important. So these little green ones are not important. You're looking for the two primes. And when you do that, what you found out was that quantity increased and price increased. Okay, well, wait a minute. Pat Mickey, didn't you just tell me that anytime you shift both the supply and demand curve at the same time, one of them can't be determined? It looks like I was able to determine what happened here. But no, because it depends on how far you shift these curves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the right, and I'm going to draw the same thing again. And again, you guys need to pause to draw these things. You need to pause this video and draw them so you catch up. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to shift both the supply and demand again. I'm going to do an increase in supply and an increase in demand, but I'm going to do opposite what I did over here on the left. Over on the left, I shifted the supply curve just a little bit. So now what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to shift the supply curve a whole lot, and I'm going to shift the demand curve just a little bit. So I just did the opposite of what I did. And when I find my new equilibrium, S prime, D prime, I find out that quantity increased and price decreased. Take a look at that. Here, price on the right, price decreased. On the left, price increased. So the answer is price is indeterminate. And in both cases, quantity increased, because we don't know which had a bigger effect. Did the change in supply have a bigger effect, or the change in demand have a bigger effect? All we know is that something's happening causing them both to shift. Okay, we won't know until after it happens. If the news media comes out and says this is what's happening right now, we don't know how big of an effect it's going to be. And so you can only look afterwards to actually determine what really happened. So anytime you shift two curves, one of them will be indeterminate. Okay, now I'm going to show you an easier way to do this. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift both of them at the same time. I'm going to do a decrease in supply and a decrease in demand, and I'm going to try to shift them by the exact same amount. If I can shift them by the exact same amount, then one of them won't change. And the one that won't change is going to be the one that's indeterminate. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and start off. Because you're going to end up with 4 intersection points when this is done, make sure you start off at equilibrium. I've seen people screw this up by not starting at equilibrium. All right, I'm going to decrease supply, and then I'm going to try to decrease demand by the same amount. So I look at it and I can see how far I shifted it. I'm going to decrease it by the same amount. And what I found was my new equilibrium point, the quantity decreased, but the price didn't decrease or increase. So since it's the one that didn't increase or decrease, the answer is price is indeterminate because it didn't change. You can't tell them on a free response test, you can't say price didn't change. No, price is indeterminate because it didn't change. It means it could have gone up. If I had shifted supply by more, then price would have increased. If I had shifted supply by less, then price would have decreased. Same thing with demand. If I'd shifted it more or less, then it would have changed the price. So the answer here is quantity, price is indeterminate, and quantity decreased. Okay, so what I want you to do now is I want you on your own to work the next two: decrease in demand, increase in supply, increase demand, and decrease supply. Work those next two, and then on Monday, I will show you the answers to these. Have a great weekend. If it's not Sunday night, I hope you had a great weekend. If it is Sunday night, and I am signing out.